Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome back to my channel. Today with another 2025 prep video because I want to talk about all the series that I would love to read in 2025. Most of them are series that I wanted to read for some time already, but for one reason or another didn't. So I want to make it a goal of mine to tackle these and focus on these and actually get reading. And I'm looking over here because there's a big stack of books over here that I want to show you. So enough of the preamble, let's just get going. I want to start with a trilogy where book 3 comes out in 2025, and I had book 1 on my shelves for quite some time, and every time I passed it, I was like, oh, I want to read it. But I didn't because it's one of those books where I think if I'm going to like it, I would want to binge the entire series. So I waited patiently, but this year, finally, the trilogy comes to an end, and I'm going to read it. And I'm really hoping that it is going to be an amazing fantasy series. And I'm talking about Matthew Ward's The Darkness Before Them. I have no idea what this series is about. That's the best part about it. I have actually zero idea what this series is about. This is a vibe fantasy. Do you have that too, where you just get a vibe that you think, yes, this is for me, I'm going to like this. Whatever is going on here, on this cover, on the title, this is going to be a me fantasy series, and I really hope I'm right. Usually I am. Not always. My vibe meter usually works. So we'll see. Continuing in the vein of new series, another one that I'm really excited about for 2025 is The Dragonbone Chair by Ted Williams. First of all, now that The Broken Binding came out with these gorgeous covers and edges and all that kind of thing, this just makes me want to read it. But also I've been circling around the series for some time in the bookstore, and I want to read something that feels more like a classical, typical sword and sorcery type fantasy. This, if I understood it correctly, just came to an end in 2024 with the last book in the continuing series. So I will start with that first trilogy. But of course, if I like that, I want to continue with that whole series and those continuing books, which I think are 4 or 5. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm excited for it. It looks cool. It sounds interesting. Everybody who has read it has been raving about it. So I'm excited to finally know what's going on here. The next one is particularly exciting given the FOMO that I'm experiencing right now. It's unreal. The release of Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson is creating such a hype theme in the internets. I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm trying really hard not to read anything because till now I'm actually clueless as to what the Cosmere is about. The only thing that I've read are 3 of the 4 secret projects that he came out. I've read nothing else by Brandon Sanderson. A colleague of mine and I are actually going to buddy read this. He is just finishing out Wheel of Time. So we started talking about Brandon Sanderson, and he also has never read the Cosmere. So we said we are going to start with Mistborn next year, Era 1. That is the series that we're going for. We went back and forth on, do we directly want to jump into the Stormlight Archive or do we want to dip our toes first? And we went with, well, let's dip our toes first and see if we even like Brandon Sanderson and if we even like the Cosmere. I'm very hopeful. So as I said, I till today have no clue. I'd like to go into things as blind as possible. I don't want to know anything about the series, especially for something so hyped like this. I really want to experience it without knowing anything and learn everything that is to learn as I'm reading it, and not because I've read spoilers or I've heard many people talk about it. So I think that deserves some sort of award, that I have no clue what this is actually about. And yeah, we'll see. And as I said, I really hope I like it. The next trilogy is one that I am myself surprised that I haven't read it, because it is talked about everywhere, especially on booktube. It is the example for grimdark, gritty fantasy, which is a subgenre that I love, but I haven't read like the first example. Everybody, if you ask someone what grimdark fantasy should I read, everybody throws out this one series, and I haven't read it yet. So I have to, right? That is, of course, The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, the first book in the First Law trilogy. Yeah, I haven't read it yet. What can I say? I want to, though. Like, that's why it's on this list. The next series is going to be an odd one, and the only reason why I have it on my list is because I found them at a used bookstore for like $2 or $3 a book, and completely new looking, and I was like, yep, I give this a try. What can go wrong for like $2, $3 a book? Well, one of them, I kept missing the second book in the series for the longest time, and just recently, like a month ago, I found it in the same used bookstore, but now it was $8. Well, there you go. Inflation. The reason, not just because it was a cheap, good-looking series, the actual reason why I picked it up is because it's an assassin type of story, and way back then, I loved stories like Brent Weeks, Night, whatever that series is called. Like, I loved reading that type of fantasy, and I haven't in a long time. Anyway, I want to read David, how do you pronounce his name? Dalglish? A Dance of Cloaks, and the series is called Shadow Dance. It's 6 books. They're all rather thin, so they should be rather quick reads, and the only vibe I'm getting is assassin. I don't know much about it, but yeah, assassin or protector, every choice has its consequences. So that's kind of the tagline of the series, and I have it on my shelf. It's one of those where I either I'm going to like it and then I keep the series on my shelf, or I will be bored out of my mind and after book 1 or 2, and then I can finally make some space on my shelf. So here's, either way is a good outcome. All right, and then I have an indie fantasy series that I want to give a try, which is Matthew Wolfe's The Knife's Edge. That is the Ronin saga. So I talked with the author, and he said, well, originally it was supposed to be 9 books because it's about 9 warriors, the Ronin, and each of them has magical abilities for a specific element like wind, water, and some others. But his beta readers and, friends and whatnot said 9 might be a bit too long, so he is now gearing towards 7 books in this series. This is an unfinished one. If I remember correctly, he said 5 of these books are already out, plus a couple of novellas. It sounded really interesting. Again, the vibe is giving me some more classical fantasy vibe with some unique elements, and I'm really excited in reading this. Plus, it's blurbed by Tracy Hickman, so it can only be good, right? If you watched my last video in the 2025 prep series, where I talked about new releases that I'm excited about, there's one release that I'm excited about above nothing else. I still haven't 100% decided what I'm going to do with it, but it is a series, or at least a part of a series, that I'm going to read in 2025, and that is the Green Rider series. Book 8 is coming out in fall 2025, whatever that means. I mean, we have fall in California right now, and it's December, so it's going to be a January spontaneous decision if I feel like reading Green Rider, which is book 1, or if I wait a little bit till later the year and then start with Mirror Sight, because that I definitely want to start with book 5. Book 5 is my favorite in the series, so I definitely want to read it again. And then book 6 and 7, there's a lot of stuff that happened that I believe is going to be important for book 8. So I want to make sure that I remember again what happened and write down all the little strings that have big question marks in my head, and I make sure that I get answers to that in book 8 and can at least cross out some of the big questions that I have. Moving to the series that I already started in some way or another and that I want to continue in 2025. Starting with Malazan, I'm holding the first part of book 5, Midnight Tides, up here, which I'm currently in the middle of. I really want to make this a project. I want to ideally finish in 2025 because I've been reading this since 2023. I'm only in the middle of book 5, or at the beginning still technically of book 5, and we have to keep going. Like, I don't want to have this sit on my TBR for like 3 more years. That would drive me crazy. I definitely want to finish this series. I'm way too far along now to just skip it and give up on it. There are aspects in there where I would love answers to, and I hope that somehow we get an answer eventually in the later books. It definitely has some really great elements, which is why I keep reading it. If I wouldn't enjoy it at all, I would not read it. I'm definitely at a point where I'm invested enough that I want to know how it ends and what some of the answers are that we are getting. So that's why I want to just make sure that I keep reading this and that I keep, going at these books. And I think, 5 books in a year of this, if I do 1 book, I mean, again, in German, it's always 2 books, right? But if I do 1 of those per month and really move forward with it, it should be doable, right? Another one of those bigger series that I should have read a long time ago, that I started a long time ago, that I really want to finish now is Dune. At least the first 4 books, which are an arc in its own. And then I'll make a decision if I'm going to read book 5 and 6 as well. But I've read Dune and Dune Messiah. I want to restart though. So I will probably read Dune and Dune Messiah again, and then Children of Dune, and I forget what book 4 is, whatever book 4 is. I really enjoyed the first 2 books a lot, but I also know that the story changes as you continue going. So I will go with this one book at a time. And if, I end up only liking book 1 and 2 and not the rest, well, that's fine too. The next one that I already started that I want to make a focus is Andrew Rowe's whole lit RPG series. I'm blanking on the name right now for the whole series, but the book 1 is Sufficiently Advanced Magic, which I already read, so I really want to continue going. I loved book 1. It was so much fun to read. I had so many moments where I was just, giggling and got excited about what was happening. I'm still not 100% sure because there's a reading order where you jump between series, and then obviously there's the reading order where you read each series one at a time. And I'm not 100% sure yet how I want to tackle that because, I'm such a squirrel brain and I don't want to start a series and then read a different series and then go back and not remembering really what happened in that other series. That's kind of my worry with jumping around with things. Anyway. That is a series that I'm really excited about. And the last one of my series continuations is Jen Lyon's The Ruin of Kings. I'm, again, blanking on what the series is actually called. Just I'm really prepped for this video today. And of course, it doesn't say it anywhere here either. Anyway, this is a 6-book series that finished, I think, 2023 was when the last book was published. And I've read book 1 2 or 3 years ago and loved it. And then for whatever reason, I never continued. Again, because sometimes you need to force yourself to make it a priority to continue a series. So I want to pick this up again. I probably have to reread book 1 here as well, similar to Dune, where I just want to start over. It has been a little bit too long since I've read it. I remember that this was a really quick read and that I enjoyed the read, so it won't be an issue. And then let's get into some bonus stuff, one of which is not really a series, but a bunch of connected books. And the other one is not science fiction fantasy, but a series that I want to pick up again and want to focus on in this year. So for the interconnected books, I want to read John Marrs. This sounds like an author that is completely up my alley with the things that he's writing about. First of all, he writes dystopian sci-fi mostly, and they're all standalones, but some of those play in the same world or are somehow connected, and you're actually supposed to read them in a certain order. Don't start with this one. That's what I already know. This is a little bit later in that reading order because it starts spoiling things at one point. From what I understand, he writes about situations that are starting to become mainstream, like self-driving cars and whatnot, and is taking our fears on these topics and putting them into those stories. The Passenger is one of those with the self-driving cars. It feels like on booktube, at least that's his most known ones. Sounds like something I'm going to enjoy, and I want to read his books one at a time. And the thriller series, or the thriller author that I want to pick up again is Erza Zergedaidatir. I've read, I believe it was the first 2 books in her series years ago, like 12, 13 years ago. And generally, I like Scandinavian authors. They're writing really dark, gritty thrillers, bloody, and really with scenes that you would not go there, but they do. I remember having a lot of fun reading those, and I remember just sitting there oh my goodness, and going through one page at a time and wanting to know what was going on. And she has so many more books in her series that I just, want to, there's a theme in this video, prioritize them. Whew. All right, that was a lot of books that I just talked about. Yowza. You can take bets now. How many of those am I actually going to read in 2025? But that's at least a stack of books that I want to really try and tackle outside of everything else that I want to read in 2025. I mean, maybe I just need to quit my job and figure out a way to make money reading. What is a series you are excited about and tackling in 2025? Let me know down in the comments. And then don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can see, which one of these am I actually going to read and how good is my success rate. And if you want to see more of my 2025 prep videos, take a look at this one here. And with that, have an amazing rest of your day, and I hope I see you soon with another video. Bye!